Hey guys, what's going on? Phil Birch here, back with a YouTube video after an incredibly long break. Just had something on my mind that I really thought I could put like some perspective on for the people of the community, both new and old. The old people probably jive with it a little bit more, but the new people who are maybe scared away by what's going on in the end of AoT1 meta might get a little bit of solace in how I play this video out. For you that don't know me, the new players, I haven't made a video for like 2 years, so like that wouldn't be surprising to me. My name is Phil Birch. I been playing the game competitively for since like 2010 when it was UFS. I started playing in like 2007, 2006, back in the day. So I've been around for about forever. My last accomplishment in the MHA slash UVS sphere was top four of nationals last year. Uh, Hopefully, looking to do well at nationals again if I'm able to go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I wanted to do today was give a little bit of blast from the past and kind of give some comparison as to this wide open, crazy, powerful end of AoT1 meta where we have a lot of incredibly strong characters and decks popping up. And I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a jump back to a similarly powered meta in 2016, our Nationals meta. So in 2016 Nationals meta, we had probably 8 to 10, maybe even 16, like top characters that could be played. Now, I don't think that they all necessarily made top cuts and blah, 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 blah. Like, the top 16 was extremely powerful, and the winning character ended up being Jiffany Jamber, which I won with, which looks unassuming, but 820 was really good at the time. But the rest of the characters up here are examples of like pretty insane effects for their time period where they were looked at as probably a little bit too powerful, a little bit too strong. And it was a kind of like big issue, I suppose, for the player base because they didn't want to have to deal with all of these things. Kind of like we don't want to have to deal with, say, risky encounters and Ryukyus and Smiling Titans until the end of time. But I think for the moment, we should kind of dial back our, I guess, not necessarily hatred, but like look at our meta as a whole, right? So this meta I would consider healthy despite like the power level of all these cards probably being a little bit too strong, right? These are characters that really pushed the envelope of what cards were doing in 2016. There was free stats, you were controlling your opponent's board on offense and defense, free momentum, building yourself to like quick kill turns on two, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Huge combos that were pretty unstoppable, right? But if you look at it as like how many decks could you have played, determining how open a meta is, this is like a really incredibly healthy meta to have, right? I'd say like 8 to 10 deck format is great, right? We've sat through metas in the My Hero game where it's just Tokiyami, it's just Kirishima 2, it's just Ojiro, right? We sit through metas that have been incredibly like swayed towards one characters. Most recent being probably younger Toguro and when Yu Yu Hakusho released. But if we flash forward to like our meta today, and I don't have a graphic for that one because there's way too many things to talk about. We're again looking at an incredibly like healthy, diverse meta in like a diversity sake, right? I'm not necessarily preaching to you that I think that all of the recent cards or cards that have been pushed forward that necessarily shouldn't have are still healthy, right? Like I'm not gonna sit here and try to defend Risky Encounter's existence or try and explain to you why Twisting Azure Inferno is banned in retro but not banned in standard. Like I'm not gonna sit here and try and defend situations on that level. Just more so that the diversity of the meta isn't necessarily horrible, right? Like you can play a variety of different decks and a variety of different styles and still end up in a really strong space in the meta, right? Rodon doesn't play the same as Smiling Titan, right? But you could see either one of those decks doing incredibly well, and they frequently do, right? Toga 3 doesn't necessarily occupy the same space as Ghidorah in any sort of way, but both those decks are still incredibly strong in their own rights. These casino decks aren't, they're not sitting around with Godzilla, and Godzilla has shown up plenty. Ryukyu is still around. Like there's a lot of stuff that can be played and is insanely good still, right? We've just released a the Dark Deku uh, challenger decks, and that character in themselves is potentially like a meta defining character. But when you put it up into this meta that we're in right now, it doesn't look as bad or as oppressive what cool things this new Deku can do, right? Because I'm sure you've all seen on the grind, which, listen, guys, I'm no competitive player, but I do talk with the guys on the grind a lot. They're some of my good friends. So that's where I'm getting some of my information. So before you think that Phil Birch guy doesn't know what he's talking about, I am loosely keyed in. But yeah, I'm sure you've seen like the Phantom Threat Deku decks popping off. And I know you've seen Ryukyu. And I know you've seen these casino decks going absolutely bananas. But if you look at it from the scope of you can play probably pretty reasonably like another like 16 characters past what I've named, this meta looks pretty good, right? It's not like necessarily the least powerful meta, right? I'm never going to argue that. The meta is incredibly strong. The meta has cards that probably shouldn't exist in it. Like some of the choices made by the companies have shaken up things, as I will say. And I can go into that in a little bit. But I think that there's not necessarily a need for any doom and gloom when it comes to the meta itself. And this is an end of meta discussion anyway, right? So the next meta is going to be entirely different with its own set of problems, its own set of characters that are probably insane or like too good or this, that, and the other. I've already seen people talking about day one erratas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or building their crazy new decks. I don't really look into things too much until the sets drop, but hey, it is what it is. So like you've all played through the meta, you are kind of understanding, I guess, maybe what I'm saying, right? You've probably had your same frustrations I have, where I had to play against Ryukyu for several months in a line, and I played against and with these casino decks. I played against Mikasa pre-errata, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you deal with what is in front of you, but you have to understand that I think the things that are incredibly broken get changed pretty quickly, and the things that are like borderline too good, they take a little bit of time to look at. I don't think that Risky Encounter will make it to Nationals, but I could be wrong, right? Risky Encounter being like the main offensive card to me, where it's just like, hey, dude, I am being rewarded for flipping my entire deck into my discard pile because now I can attack you 3 more times by destroying my cards that I don't need anyway. Yeah, which is ridiculous. Enough about the meta, and I think my explanation of why we have kind of ended up in a meta of this sort, I think it's kind of twofold. Twofold things that I do not like that the company has done, but it's not necessarily like the be-all, end-all, right? I don't like attuned symbols. I think the attuned thing has gone and allowed a little bit too much access for unreasonable cards, right? Like Risky Encounter shouldn't be able to be played in every deck. I don't think it necessarily is a good thing that any death character can slap Risky Encounter in their deck if they want to. Similarly, I don't think that all of the like random other like Feral Shriek being in every deck that has a discard cost or stuff like that. I think that the way UFS and UVS have been set up really allowed for creativity within deck design, and I don't necessarily think attunement makes deck designs more creative. I think it just leads to a space where the most powerful cards in an attuned set just get played in almost every single deck that can play them on those attuned symbols, right? Because it just leads to a situation where like a Risky Encounter ends up in every single deck that has like the death symbol, which is kind of where we're at. I mean, I'm sure there are examples where it's not, and like I definitely see that, but like I have copies of Risky Encounter in my mill Joker deck because he's got death, so it's like it's everywhere. My second thing that I think is a mistake or was a mistake is the time shifted cards from Yu Yu Hakusho. I don't necessarily think they're all like too broken or anything, but don't like the idea that now we have to like take this watchful eye towards cards that were already printed, forever ago, going on six years probably. I think they came out in 2018, maybe 2019. But like we're keeping a watchful eye on stuff that shouldn't even be around anymore, right? These cards are already rotated. We've already had to deal with Mop Strike. Like there's potential for like Keiko's aids and Genkai's guidance, or not Genkai's guidance, sorry, Genkai's training on like the 5 symboled Deku character to like just be crazy and the list kind of goes on from there. Like Byakko, does he really need to exist? Not particularly. None of those cards from Byakko support need to exist either. Um, yeah, it's just like small stuff through like the reprintings and like the design philosophies have, I think, really pushed the power creep a little bit, which is why we're seeing so many things feel so much stronger. But also, I think that because of these things, we can expect the meta to kind of keep progressing in this sort of way. I don't think we're going to end up like a Bandai type game where everything gets power crept out by every set, right? I don't think every set's just going to push everything down the line. But I could see a world where this could be our projected power level for our sets in the future, and not necessarily be a bad thing. Though them talking about not turn twoing people again really leads me to believe that we're going to dial it down again, but I don't really know what that looks like. To me, the perfect example of like when the meta didn't look so crazy and pushed was girl power, right? We had just like the girl power Godzilla decks. I thought that everything that was in there was fine. And then AOT with the tuned cards kind of gave everything a little bit more of a boost. And I think that kind of led to a bit of a downward slope, at least for right now, right? You never know how things are going to go. We can't really foresee how AoT2 will shake up because we don't know if there will be any changes from AoT1. We don't know if there's going to be any bans. We don't know if there's going to be a day one or like day zero erratas. We don't know like anything about it yet. We're just kind of sitting on our spoilers and kind of like pushing our faces into the glass at the store, trying to like see what's next, what's exciting, what the new cool Christmas presents are going to be, right? So yeah, I think that I guess my ending conclusion is that for a lot of probably the old heads, we have seen metas like this before, and I don't think it's necessarily like a whistle that things are going down the drain. For those of you who are new, I think that this was probably a more exciting meta to play in, especially if you've come from other card games where just playing competitive stuff is awesome. For me, this was like a bad meta because I really like stuff that I think is like kooky or fun or a little bit off the meta, a little bit off the beating path, which can usually survive a lot better in a format like the Kirishima only one where like you're allowed to play something a little bit kooky because if your little kooky thing does well into like Kirishima, then it's a pretty good step for you, right? Or last Nats when everybody was playing like Overhaul and Eraserhead and this, that, and the other, and Mirio, and I got to play Mimic and have like a pretty nice time because nobody saw Mimic, right? Nobody really went around and dissected the Mimic decks yet. At least not the evil Mimic deck that I played. Anyway, guys, that's my video. Maybe I'll make a little bit more of a rambling musing videos in the future when I feel so motivated, but hopefully you enjoy it. I know it's going to be a little bit of a slog. It's a little bit more rambly than I was hoping. I just like talking about the game, so I got a little bit of a tangent there. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you watched the whole way through, hopefully you enjoy it, and maybe we'll do one at the end of the Attack on Titan 2 meta, or maybe pre-nats, who knows, post-nats, who knows, we'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all soon.